Welcome back to the Junk Man's Adventures. I'm the Junk Man, and today we're going to work on a little bit of a project that I've already kind of started here, which happens a lot. I get to working on something and then I think, you know what, I should make a video about that. Well, I'm going to make a video about that. But anyway, I got to back you up and tell you a little bit about this engine here, because as you can tell, it's missing a few parts. It looks pretty rough, and let's tell you about it. Well, keen watchers of my channel and visitors to my website that have followed me for years and years and years now have probably recognized maybe this motor and maybe the frame here and things. But this is one of the 3 bikes that I picked up when I got the 1970 F9 Bighorn that I restored in my Barn Fresh restoration series, which go check that out. I'll have a card up here and links in the description, because I got tons of pictures and everything that aren't in the videos and information that isn't covered in the videos, so it's kind of a 1-2 punch. You can get some information on that. Anyhow, you might have saw this in that video. I also used parts off of this particular bike and engine for my F9 project, which is a F81M motocross replica bike. It's a performance bike. I use the pipe and shocks and some other things. You can go check that out. Put a card up here, link in the description. You can see all about that bike, see some pictures and whatnot. But like I said, keen viewers already know about those projects. But anyway, I was taking this engine out of the frame mostly because I'm going to modify the frame and maybe transfer my parts over from that F9. And I decided, as I was getting into it, maybe you guys would like to see how to take out a badly kept engine. This has been kept outside all of its life before I got it, and then a little bit even when I had it. So it's stuck, it's seized, and we'll see if we can get it apart, and then maybe we'll see if we can clean up the parts and kind of put it all back together. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know, but let's find out. I thought I'd take you guys along on this little journey. So let's get to it. First thing we'll do is we'll take the big clutch nut off. And of course, this one's not on there very tight. It shouldn't be. And because the engine's locked up, I don't need to hold the clutch basket with a tool like you normally would have to. Just remove the clutch hub here. All the plates, or what's left of the plates, will fall out. Some of them are missing. Take the clutch basket off. Surprisingly, it wasn't rusted on. I was really surprised about that. Next thing we need to do is take the pinion nut off. In this case, it's also the oil pump drive gear. And some people can use a wrench like this. I've seen this in somebody used a wrench before. And you got to find the right size. I forget what exact size it is, but actually there is a special socket that is required to take this off, specifically on the F9, and the F5 is the same as well, as you can see here. And somebody has, again, kind of rounded the corners, so I'm going to have to tap or hammer on this socket just a little bit to get this loosened up. And just use my impact, and again, this shouldn't be on very tight, and this one wasn't rusted on. Of course, I soaked it with some PB Blaster or some penetrating oil. And now I have to turn it back on and wiggle the socket to get it off, and maybe hammer it just a little bit because it's stuck on there. Now I wished I hadn't used that socket. Just spin the nut off. And there's supposed to be a little locking ring behind there with a metal tab that you bend over one of the teeth. Well, somebody chewed this one up. Again, this is signs that this engine has been applied part before. And then just using a pry bar, sort of levering this primary gear off the end of the crankshaft, it was really stuck on there. It should just easily slide off because there's a little keyway. You shouldn't have to do this on a normal engine. And then there's the little woodruff key. Surprisingly, it was in good shape and not stuck in there. Now we're going to take off the rotary valve cover. I'm using my impact driver screwdriver. It's a JIS standard screwdriver, so I don't wreck these delicate screws. And we're just going to lightly and carefully pry the cover off. And man, look at all the crud and everything in there. And that rotary valve looks pretty bad. I hope it comes off there. We'll add a little bit of penetrant here. Let that sit on there for a little while. Now at first, to get this off, there's a little hole over here, and I thought, well, it should just slide off. Under a normal engine. It just slides off of there. It'll be just an easy slip fit. So I thought just a little bit of my slide hammer puller with a sheet metal screw in there might be just enough to break it loose. And nope, it just pulled the screw right out of the hole. Tried this a couple times, decided that's not going to work. Now you're going to cringe at seeing this using a chisel here, but I was on my last resort and used the chisel and it broke it free enough that then I was able to lever it off there. It is not usable in this condition, and it was pretty burnt, so obviously someone didn't use the right oil mixture or something of that nature, but just the water in there from over time. This one would have to be replaced anyway. Now, there's all this crud in here, and there's a little pin that you need to take out before we split the cases here. That's what locates the rotary valve. Using my impact driver here, we are going to loosen up all the case screws so then we can split these cases. Uh-oh, that one don't look good. Not as bad as I thought it'd be. Last one. It's the last one. shift shaft's a little bent. See if we can tap it through. Yep, that's what it's getting hung up on. That shift shaft is bent a little bit. It's kind of putting the whole thing in a bind. Let's see if we can get it past there. This crank bearing stuck, it's coming out with this side, but otherwise, okay, looks like because this bearing's seized in here, looks like the crank's going to come out with this side. But we'll hold that down, all the transmission gears stay there, and that's that little washer there, so that'll go, I'll put it right there, it goes right in there, but anyway, that's what it looks like, and it's, yeah, this is frozen solid. That bearing's locked up tight. Yeah, pretty toasty in here. I don't know if this crank is usable, but you know what? I got a half mind to soak this in some rust remover and seeing if this doesn't just free it up right now after I clean all this gunk out of here. But anyway, let's move on to that, and we'll see if we can get this this crankshaft out of here. Alright, we got all the parts out of the rust soak, and I spared you some of the really boring stuff of dipping, cleaning, and re-dipping these in the rust removal soak. It took about 2.5 days of doing that to get it to this point, so we can show you what's in here, and we can begin seeing if anything is salvageable. And I have my factory service manual here for this engine. We're going to go through some of the crucial measurements and the things that you need to check to see if any of these parts are salvageable, and then obviously we need to make a parts list to see what I need to see if we can resurrect this engine. One of the most important parts we're going to check is the crankshaft. If you remember, it was a little bit stuck in the center cases, but after getting it out of the rust soak and just a light tap of the hammer, the crankshaft just came right out of the bearings. So it was just a little bit of surface rust that was holding that in from sitting outside in the weather and everything. But if you remember, the rod was stuck, and it still was stuck even out of the rust soak. With a little bit of heat and persuasion, I was able to get it moving, but it's still a little rough in there. So we're going to go through all the specifications to see if potentially this crankshaft is salvageable, or at least what shape the parts are in as far as specifications go. Alright, we're going to do some checking here. The service limit is 0.36 millimeters, so this rotary valve is on its way out. And you can also see from the rust it has deteriorated it, so we were going to need a new one anyways. Checking the end clearance here, and actually this is pretty good. And here we're going to do the end play on the bearing, and it's right at the tolerance or the service limit. But this side clearance with these washers, you can see they're kind of mushrooms, so I'd want to disassemble this crank and take it apart. And this one's a hard one to check to get very accurate, but it's right at about the service limit. We'd replace it anyways. And here's the crank bearings. Now this is the right side bearing, the one that was stuck, and it's hard to see in here, but This bearing, I believe, seized from lack of lubrication because there's a groove that you can actually feel with the pick in there. And you can see it's a little bit shiny in there after we remove the rust. Well, now that we went through all the specifications and kind of determined what parts are good or were salvageable, and a little bit about what might have happened to this engine, now it's time to make a parts list. And I'm going to show that right now and going to go over it, and you're going to find out that this is not going to be a very inexpensive rebuild. $25 for the left bearing and $200 for the right bearing. That's a special bearing. I'll have more information on my website. About $20 for the big end bearing, and there's the wrist pin bearing, about $12. And this is this little part. It's missing on mine. I'll need it, about $5. Here's a piston kit for only $40. That's pretty good. Here's a engine oil seal kit for about $40. That's not bad. Engine gasket kit, $35. And of course we'll need the pressure plate for the clutch. And of course there's a lot more parts, like a clutch cover and ignition system. And, well, anyway, here's a big list of the parts and the total. Yikes. Alright, that's about it. And as you can kind of see, this one's going to be pretty expensive. And I hate to disappoint you, especially at the end of the video, that I am not going to put this engine back in service, or at least not right now. I don't have that kind of funding. This channel does not make that kind of money to just throw that much money at it to put together an engine that I really don't have a bike to put it in at the moment. It would just be for fun. And actually, that's the whole point of this video. I wanted to show, could I get this apart, investigate, show some investigative techniques, and you know, how to determine what you can save, what you can replace, and that an engine that was sat outside, stuck, and looked, in general, pretty terrible, that with enough money, anything can be rebuilt, obviously. But I just hope that this is somewhat educational for you out there, and please subscribe and watch some of my other videos. Like I said, this engine I'm going to use for demonstration purposes, so it's not all for naught. I'm going to make a bunch of other videos about especially some unique things about this particular engine, but other things that are more common to two-stroke engines, as well as other rotary valve type two-strokes, not just Kawasaki's, because other manufacturers use this kind of technology just in different ways or slightly different designs. Kawasaki is probably arguably one of the brands that developed it the most back in its heyday. But anyway, I appreciate you watching. If you like this, share it to your friends. If you think this would be helpful to somebody, a novice, who, you know, even if they don't have this exact bike, if they have some other rotary valve bike, it kind of gives an idea of what they're getting into if they want to rebuild. Two-strokes are pretty simple, but there are some little nuances to them. But the most important thing I can say is have your service manual. You need this. You need this to do all these checks and really to rebuild any engine, whether it's two-stroke or four-stroke. I cannot stress this enough. All right, that's enough. I'm the Junk Man, and thanks for watching.